this government has finally adopted this as a very important pillar of not just resource raising, but involving the private sector, is to be welcomed. It is big, it is bold. The budget announcements had said something like 3.5 lakh crores. And I think the policy now says 6 lakh crores. And this does not include the states. I mean, if the states really warm up to the incentive given by the center that we will top up 33% of any proceeds that you get, this figure could very well touch 10 lakh crores, because many states have some very good assets like power generating plants, transmission, warehousing, expressways, etc., etc. But to come to your point, the reason for many previous governments not biting the bullet is the fear of a political backlash of selling the family silver. So now I'm addressing your real question. The dilemma that the FM faced was, the last thing you want in a program like this is very strong backlash of selling the family silver. And there could also be a rigorous economic argument that you need not have to sell operating utilities. You could give them away on long-term concessions. So the fact that you are trying to monetize assets, nobody is going to buy and you're not going to sell, obviously answers your question of saying assets which are fallow or lying unutilized don't have any operating revenues. So you have to sell them. But the moment you take a decision that I will not sell, but I will give operating contracts, then you need a business that is running, which is why they have left out the ones you mentioned and have picked up what I called brownfield operating assets.
Okay.
Monetizing brownfield assets is what is called PPP through the side door.
Yeah.
When you attract PPP to set up a new project, well, that's PPP through the front door. This is PPP through the side door, because you are reducing the level of risk by giving assets which have already covered the development and construction risk and are only face operating risk. But it is still PPP. And in this country, to give a operating utility for 30 to 60 years on a PPP framework is not an easy task. Selling is actually much easier, because then you just have to handle some legacy issues and get to a market-determined, transparent pricing formula. But in PPP, you have very long and complicated PPP concession agreements, right? Now, the market confidence, both the domestic private investor and the foreign private investors' appetite for PPP is not particularly robust. I mean, if you see the latest bids for the private train operators, there were 113 bidders who evinced tremendous interest in the beginning. But by the time the bids were opened, they got only 3 bidders, including IRCTC.
Yes.
Now, this is one, and if you ask any of them, what is the single biggest reason why you did not bid? You will get one common answer, is that we are not confident that the railway system will give us a level playing field vis-a-vis the behemoth Indian Railways. And we miss the absence of an independent regulator to sort out issues that will bother us. Now, that refrain cut through sectors. And we have now reached a stage where the government must take a call on reshaping the PPP environment. You have to put the enabling conditions before you push policy through the system. And in the enabling conditions, we have time and again seen that the cart has come before the horse.
Yeah, that's true.
So my humble suggestion is that while this is a big, bold, and a desirable economic step, it is intellectually well anchored. The enabling conditions of reshaping the PPP environment to actually get not just private sector participation, but a good price also. If a project is perceived as too risky, as lack of level playing field, people will quote less also. So not only do you want to get the broad-based participation of domestic and foreign investors, you also want higher prices. For all these reasons, and generally, you have to now start, you cannot ignore refashioning the PPP environment. list of stuff that the government has to do to refashion the PPP ecosystem to make it a far more positively charged system is a long list, and that probably covers everything else. I just mentioned regulatory authority, but there are issues mentioned in the Kelkar committee of saying that you need to recognize that the policy document is never perfect in the beginning. You need a renegotiating principle. You need bureaucrats to be protected from, if they have taken correct decisions, minuted on file. They can't be persecuted 10 years later.
Yes.
As has happened in the coal case or somewhere else. So, so there are a vast number of issues that require to be handled. But there are 5-6 key issues, and I think though if they're handled, the top being an independent regulation, renegotiation, and very strong dispute redressal system. Disputes do happen. In 60 years, disputes will happen. There's no question. Nobody, no human being can, economists can't predict GDP in the 2 quarters down the line, and you expect a document to hold water without any changes for 60 years is a pipe dream. Unfortunately, that's the way we have operated. Because government has told the private sector, you signed it with your eyes open, now you live with the consequences. Now, it has to have the spirit of a partnership, not the spirit of a landlord takeover. You see?
All right, understood.
And that is the apprehension, because the entire monetization plan now, something that we had originally thought was a was a sale or a divestment. Now we find that the policy actually veers towards a PPP format.
Yes.
That brings a complete different dimension in a situation where PPP is not the flavor of the month. Although, in all fairness, there have been some successes. Airports have gone. Some ports have developed well. There are the HAM projects in roads are doing all right. So it is not that PPP is completely abandoned, but the appetite for PPP is extremely governed by a degree of risk aversion and a belief that it is not a partnership approach.
Okay, understood.
We need intellectual depth in crafting these PPP agreements, not just to provide a level playing field, but to also get maximum bang for the buck, for the government to make up its money and for the private sector investor to get back his investment. So ultimately, it all comes back to intellectual capacity to design rational, meaningful, fair concession agreements. If that is done, it will sail through.